Welcome in, everyone, to Redacted on this Monday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores. We've got a lot of stories we're going to be covering today, like nuclear war and why the Biden administration is doing this right now. Leaked, unauthorized, anonymous sources from the Biden administration allowing Zelensky in Ukraine to put in place long-range weapons to attack inside Russia. President Trump speaking about an hour ago, saying this is absolute madness, that we're going to be basically dragged into a nuclear war. And it's interesting because you really think that Biden is doing this. Who's pulling the strings right now while we're in this transitional period? President Trump taking office on January 20th. They're trying to upend his presidency as we speak.
We're also going to talk about where the Kamala Harris money went, because we continue to have a report on how she spent over $100,000 per week. Now, how would you feel if you had donated to that campaign to realize that in one fell swoop, she spent $7,000 on boba tea? I mean, I guess that's very team building, right?
Yeah.
To have boba tea. But we're going to talk about how she continues to raise money over this. I know I put on X this weekend that our tween daughter could easily run up a bill like that in a single year on boba tea.
Also, President Trump set to declare a state of national emergency, using an emergency declaration upon his entrance into the office. Liberals are melting down over this right now, and specifically around the United States southern border. And he has now confirmed that is the case. CNN confirming that. Yes, in fact, President Trump will declare a national state of emergency, use the U.S. military to go to the southern border of the United States and secure our safety. They're making it seem like, wow, this is like brand new information. We didn't know about this before. So liberal freakout is in full effect. We'll talk about that.
Plus, lawyers for Diddy say that the federal government leaked the tape of him beating his girlfriend because of a slow news day for Trump. It's a strange argument to make, and we're going to go through it and also ask ourselves why. This is like, why do birds sing?
It's Trump fault.
Why did celebrities care so much about Harvey Weinstein and not at all about Diddy? Why is there no Me Too movement? Why is there no outreach about that? Why do you think? Why? I mean, it may be that the most obvious answer is the answer, but we're going to just ask that and look at where that case is right now.
We're going to get to all of these news. Nice to see you guys today. Welcome in. Exciting to on this Monday to have you all here. Let us know where you're joining us from around the world. We're live streaming right now on Rumble, on YouTube, on X. So good to see all of you guys. And by the way, have you seen the mass exodus right now on X? Actually, it's not a mass exodus. It's liberals getting upset and going over to
Blue Sky,
which is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How long, by the way, do you guys think that website is going to last?
Well, they tried to do that with Mastodon as well. When, Twitter CEO or ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino says, we have the highest engagement ever during this election.
Yeah.
So, only the whiniest who cannot handle free information are leaving. I did reserve my Natali Morris tag over at Blue Sky. And I'm like, what's happening over here? That's boring. I'm out. So I spent about 30 seconds there.
A liberal echo chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a place you actually want.
What was that M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village? Oops, kind of. The Village, it's kind of like that. They created their own little village.
Exactly. All right, we got a lot of news to get to today, but you know what's about to happen to the FDA, what's about to happen to the CDC? I mean, unbelievable move right now, because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is about to take over and put health back as a priority and against big pharma in the United States, and they are panicking. I mean, you saw over on Friday night the stocks plummeting for a lot of the biopharmaceutical stocks and all the vaccine stocks like Moderna, Novavax, Pfizer stocks plummeting as a result of RFK Jr.'s announcement as head of HHS. And our friends over at Black Forest Supplements, man, they have been under attack, of course, by the FDA because of their NMN supplements, providing natural anti-aging supplements that the FDA can't get their hands on, and they've been trying to. So this is going to be a huge win for our friends over at Black Forest Supplements. We hope they've got enough, because right now testosterone rates in the United States have been declining for years. There's been an attack on men in the United States. But, I mean, the last couple of generations, and this attack perfectly aligns with the goals and the motivation of the elitist class. It's tried and true, trusted methods for centuries. So right now, our friends over at Black Forest Supplements, you can go over there for the next 48 hours. Buy 2 and get 1 free. Go check them out. See what they have to offer. They've got some incredible anti-aging and mimicking testosterone hormones, tricking your body into believing it has more testosterone without actually changing your hormonal balance. So go over there and support our friends. blackforestsupplements.com/redacted for the next 2 hours. For the next 48 hours. Buy 2 and get 1 free. So our thanks to them for supporting Redacted here. Well, rumors started swirling overnight that President-elect Donald Trump was about to declare a national emergency declaration upon entering the White House, declaring a national emergency at our southern border, bringing the United States military in to stop it. Well, yes, now it is official. And we have this confirmation right from President-elect Trump's own mouth. True, in response to Tom Fitton, who said, "Good news, reports are incoming. The incoming president administration prepared to declare a national emergency will use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program." Philip, you were saying, man, Reddit has just been exploding with all of that. Are the liberal folks over on Reddit excited about this, or are they thinking that overstepping his boundaries?
No, like it's the end of the world.
It's the end of the world.
The big thing that's being brought up is the denaturalization along with it. So they're basically what the overall thing on Reddit is, if I was going to sum it up, is that Trump is going to take anybody that they don't like, denaturalize them, then deport them somewhere.
Okay. So if you're a citizen, in other words, if you're a citizen, he's going to kick you out of the country. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, okay. That makes zero sense.
And are these the same people, I'm just curious, who thought that COVID was a national emergency and they were totally fine with that?
They were totally fine with lockdowns.
But increased crime and 300,000 children being lost at the southern border by traffickers is not an emergency. That's cool. That's totally cool.
That's totally cool, apparently. I mean, okay. I don't want...
And 98% of known criminals that are crossing the border right now that are currently in the United States, that ICE has admitted that they've only arrested 2% of known criminals, migrants. That's not an emergency. 600,000 criminals, known criminals, for murder, rape, car burglary, house burglary. All that's cool. That's not an emergency.
Exactly.
Okay. It's cool. I mean, if you don't think that's an emergency, that's why you voted for Kamala Harris. Let me just give you a thumbs up on that one.
So don't let Philip speak for all of Reddit. He likes to lurk on Reddit, and he often provides some amazing responses to the people of Reddit. So he's not our official spokesperson for Reddit, by the way.
No, that's what the algorithm on Reddit served him, yes. And he is letting us know because we want to know why people would not want this. Why wouldn't they want this? Trucks of migrants being trucked in, a lot of times they die and freeze, and we don't want a national emergency at the border to stop people from dying and being kidnapped and raped. I'm so curious why that's not an emergency to you, white people.
Yeah. So Caitlin Collins posted this from CNN. Of course, she's one of their lackeys over at CNN. She says, Trump confirms he is prepared to declare a national state of emergency and use military assets to carry out his mass deportation pledge. Military assets. So liberals, of course, are melting down over this. Here's the liberal response. Total overreach of executive power, but MAGA doesn't care about the Constitution, she says. So not sure if these liberals are aware, of course. So she says total overreach of executive power. Okay, just to be clear about this, all you need to do is go to whitehouse.gov and you can read on the executive branch exactly right here. The power of the executive branch is vested in the President of the United States, who also acts as head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And beyond that, the U.S. law generally forbids the president from deploying military forces within the United States unless there is an invasion or a rebellion. And we have to go back to 1807 when the Insurrection Act was passed. It's a federal law that gives the president the authority to deploy military forces, including federal troops or the National Guard, to address situations of insurrection, rebellion, or widespread lawlessness in the United States. Would you say we have widespread lawlessness? Would you say that we have an invasion? I would. So he may use the Insurrection Act with his national emergency declaration, basically. But beyond that, there's a long-standing precedent for this. The United States has a long history of using its military to secure the border. And spoiler alert, this isn't some new thing that's cooked up in the last 5 years by Republicans. No, this has been going on for nearly 200 years in the United States. And you can let your liberal friends know about that. In fact, for instance, back in the 1840s, the border as we know it today didn't even exist. The Mexican-American War happened, and we ended up with a huge chunk of what is now the southwestern United States of America. And after that, the army was sent in. Why? Well, to keep things under control. That's why. And stop raids, protect settlers in that region, make it clear that this land belongs to the United States. This wasn't just about geography. It was about the security, just like today. Then fast forward to the early 1900s. Okay, this is probably more relevant than even what happened in the 1800s. The Mexican Revolution was raging. Just across the border, it was chaos. Towns in Texas, New Mexico were getting caught in the crossfire. Sound familiar? So what did we do? We sent in the United States military. Yes, General Pershing sent in to secure the border. U.S. southern border in the early 1900s. In fact, General Pershing even led troops into Mexico, chasing Pancho Villa. Yes, we crossed the border. Why? Because things were spilling over into our country, and you deal with it when that happens. So March 1911, during William Howard Taft's presidency in the United States, they rolled out barbed wire for the first time, and it was actually the first official use of the term wall. Everyone wants to slam Trump for saying the wall, build a wall. William Howard Taft was doing that back in 1911, rolling out huge spools of barbed wire to keep out invaders in the United States. In fact, the United States at that time under Taft sent 20,000 soldiers to the United States southern border to secure it. But this is a new thing. This is suddenly new. It's unprecedented. Total control of our Constitution. Okay, just so you understand, 20,000 troops at the U.S. southern border. We right now have 58,000 troops in the Middle East. 58,000 who are sitting there as cannon fodder. And if we enter this war, broader war in the Middle East, they will be killed. But you're concerned about the use of military assets in the United States to protect our own borders? It's rich, really. That's a rich statement to take.
Well, but what's the alternative, though? Do nothing? Let people keep getting hurt? That's the thing about people who are so upset about Kamala Harris losing, is that her solution to the current problem where children are being raped and traded is no solution at all, is keep it as is and pass a bill through Congress to continue to use the money that President Trump had earmarked for that border. There's no other solution. So those people will continue to be hurt. Do I have empathy for families with mixed migration status? Absolutely. And Donald Trump has said that he will try not to deport whole families. We don't know how this is going to work out, but how can we sit here and say, no, we got to keep it as it is? How? They have no alternative solution. Present me one, and then we'll consider it. But to my mind, with this suffering, with a Department of Homeland Security report that says we've lost 300,000 children, we know we've visited some of them, and some of these, like the one woman who said, in my house, my husband's raping this girl. And they said, okay, but we know where she is now. Bye. They left her there. That's what our current laws allow. How can we say that this is okay? How can you I don't know how you can cast your vote for Kamala Harris knowing that that was what her administration did. She left a child in a rapist home. Even one.
Oh,
one.
It'll get worse in a second here when I show you something else. But just even some more context here in the 1980s. So we're talking about early 1900s. Well, we just go back to the 1980s. It's not ancient history. Ronald Reagan sent troops to the U.S. southern border because of what was happening. Ronald Reagan. In the 1980s, the military was brought in again, not with tanks and troops marching down Main Street, but to help fight the drug war. So Reagan, a man who understood the concept of national security, said, quote, hey, this isn't a policy issue or policing issue. This is about protecting the country. It's not about like supplanting what the police are doing. No, this is about protecting an invasion of drugs into the United States. Imagine, now it's way worse. If you take what Reagan was fighting in the drug trade, coming in Jamaican drugs pouring in from Jamaica, coming up through Central America, it was a disaster. This is way worse what we're seeing with fentanyl now in the United States. And he said this about our border. But the simple truth is that we've lost control of our own borders, and no nation can do that and survive. By the way, side note, we now know, according to testimony this morning, in the Laken Riley murder trial, the illegal immigrant who killed her was flown to Georgia by the Biden-Harris regime on their dime. In New York City, flown to Georgia. You taxpayers paid for their flight so they could resettle wherever they wanted in the United States. And they chose Georgia, and they chose to kill somebody. Yes, the roommate of Jose Ibarra, the man charged with Laken Riley's murder, testified this morning that they both received a taxpayer-funded flight to Georgia. In other words, the Biden-Harris administration paid for Jose Ibarra to fly to Georgia, where he killed Laken Riley. Here is that testimony, and I'll kind of talk over some of the Spanish back and forth. But watch, this is the bombshell moment.
Someone else that you got to know, that you lived with while you were here in Athens?
¿Alguien más que llegaste a conocer, que vivió con ustedes aquí en Athens?
Giancarlo Hernández.
Giancarlos Hernández.
Okay. And how did you get to Athens?
¿Y cómo llegaron a Athens?
En Nueva York pedimos en Manhattan.
In New York, we asked in Manhattan.
En el Hotel Roosevelt.
And Hotel Roosevelt.
So they were at the Hotel Roosevelt. So they were being put up.
Pedimos un vuelo humanitario aquí hasta Atlanta.
In Manhattan, we requested for a humanitarian flight to come here to Atlanta.
So in New York City, they're at the Hotel Roosevelt.
¿Cuándo fue eso?
I want to fly out of here. I want to be put up in Georgia. Like, where do you want to go? Go right downtown here in New York City. I'm at the Hotel Roosevelt, have all my meals and everything paid for by U.S. taxpayers. And then I want to, I'd like to resettle. Georgia seems nice. That's where I can go, and I'll go and kill Laken Riley. That happened under the Biden-Harris regime. So liberals can cry all the tears they want today, but this national declaration, this national emergency declaration is coming. And I can't wait for it to happen. I hope that there are liberal tears all over the United States for what's about to happen to secure our border. I'm excited about it.
Okay. I mean, again, the ICE document that was released just before the election showed at least 20,000 rapists and had put in their own document that they knew of them and that they had arrested less than 2% of them. So this is something that the Biden-Harris administration has ordained by decriminalizing most behaviors on behalf of not just migrants, but all of us, right? And so this is something that you have to ignore if you're going to get upset about mass deportations. So, okay. All right, where are we? I'm sorry, I got lost. So let's talk about war, because he's not the vice president. President Biden has decided that, World War III sounds good. Now, according to some unnamed sources from the New York Times, which gives me pause, right? President Biden has just pushed the United States to the brink of nuclear war by authorizing the Ukrainian military to use American long-range missiles to strike inside Russia, which would get us all killed. Now, when Biden had his wits about us, he said he would never do this because that would lead to World War III. But now that he only has a few more weeks on the job, he's like, is World War III so bad? Should we just do that? Again, according to unnamed sources. So we know, of course, President Biden doesn't know what he's up to. Who inside the Biden administration told this to the New York Times? Did they really do it? Are they hinting at something? We don't know. Well, here's what President-elect Trump said this morning, slamming Biden for escalating this war and calling for it to stop immediately.
We have never been closer to World War III than we are today under Joe Biden. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers would mean death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon. Nothing is more important than avoiding that nightmare. We will avoid it, but we need new leadership. Every day this proxy battle in Ukraine continues, we risk global war. We must be absolutely clear that our objective is to immediately have a total cessation of hostilities. All shooting has to stop.
All right. Now, the Kremlin responded to that this morning. President Vladimir Putin told the BBC that the Biden administration continues to stoke tension around this conflict. And in September, Putin had said that this would pose a threat to Russia and that they would respond in kind, whether it be nuclear or otherwise, on the people that supplied Ukraine with these weapons, meaning all NATO countries, meaning us. Now, Representative Thomas Massie said this about this on X: by authorizing long-range missiles to strike inside Russia, Biden is committing an unconstitutional act of war that endangers the lives of all U.S. citizens. This is an impeachable offense, but the reality is he's an emasculated puppet of the deep state. And again, let's take a look at this New York Times article because it says, according to unnamed sources. So we don't know who that is. And of course, the New York Times is a mouthpiece of the deep state. So did they make this up? Is it someone who is penetrated inside the New York Times who wants to escalate this war? Is this even real? Ukrainian President Zelensky said on X, "We love the idea of this. Long-range weapons have been on my Christmas list for 2 years now. Santa hasn't brought them to me. But, yes, this is part of my peace plan, or my victory plan is what he calls it. Last year it was a peace plan. This year it's a victory plan. I get them confused because they're both bullshit. But he said, we haven't seen it yet. And so until we actually see this in writing or see the weapons, we're not really going to believe it. But he's given a thumbs up to the idea, as he has been all along, because he wants full-scale invasion of Russia. And he wants all Ukrainians dead. I don't know why, because he's a demon, probably. So while we're on the same page here, Russia and the United States combined to possess 85% of the world's nuclear stockpile. A war between the two countries could, end humanity. The story was confirmed by the Wall Street Journal. Here it is on X. President Biden, for the first time, authorized Ukrainian forces to use Western-made long-range weapons to strike inside Russia, to which Alex Soros, the heir to the Soros throne, says, great. Well, why would he say great? Because his family obviously hates humanity and stands to make a lot of money off of war. So again, I ask you.
This is great news.
Great
news.
Yeah, I'm so excited about who will die. Maybe it's us, but what I really want is innocent Russian people to die first and foremost. I ordained this. Have you ever said great about bombing humans? Have you ever felt that was a great idea?
No, I can't think. You've lost literally almost 1 million Ukrainian men now to this war. And so that the likes of George Soros can get their hands, the likes of BlackRock and Vanguard can take over these lands, start building and making money off of the soil of these dead people.
Yeah.
That's what Alex Soros is championing right now. That's where all that George Soros money went, by the way, helping to make sure that Kamala Harris would win, right? All of these warmonger candidates, so that they can reap the spoils of war and the death of these nearly 1 million Ukrainian men right now. It's disgusting.
Under what circumstances, you guys, is a bomb a great news when you know that innocent people will die? Can you think of a time where you were like, yes, bombs, other than the expression, the bomb?
No, I can't think of a time.
Okay. David,
No.
Philip, anytime you loved the idea of bombing
No, I don't.
people?
I can't think of anybody, like government, country, or people in thereof that I hate enough that I want them all to die. I don't even dislike them enough to really want them to get hurt.
It's a reminder that people want peace. Governments want war, unless you're part of the Soros family.
Well, it reminds me of the Polish MP who tweeted in the day right after the Nord Stream pipeline bomb went off and destroyed the pipeline, the largest environmental catastrophe in world history. And the Polish MP was like,
"Thank you, United States.
Thanks, America. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, thank you."
Tell me a time other than World War II that it was actually justified. I mean, if you look at our history since World War II, I don't think we've had any justification for any bomb we've ever dropped.
Was that justified?
I don't know what you're saying there. About
World War II,
I'm saying
World War II,
World War II was
bombing.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't
cities.
agree with the method, but I'm saying there was an actual threat that needed to be taken care of with Germany. Other than that, no.
Let's put a pin in that, because I don't want to have a tangent on.
We can have a whole huge tangent on war. There's no, as Sting has said, there's never a justification for it. So anyway, yes.
Okay. Again, I can't figure out why the New York Times would do this, why everyone would react to unnamed sources in the New York Times. What's the angle here when the White House hasn't confirmed it? Why are we responding to this? I mean, the only person who actually seems to have had a measured response was Vladimir Putin saying, well, they're stoking tension, but we don't know because it's unconfirmed. Even Zelensky himself has said that. So who wants this? No one on Redacted wants this. Well, so why? It's a suspiciously timed story when the Biden administration is outgoing and they are furiously trying to prevent President Trump from getting a peace deal.
Well, we have a special guest coming up on this topic. We're going to dive more deeply into it, specifically with some sources out of Moscow, right out of President Putin's own inner circle. We're going to talk with that individual coming up in just a short few minutes. But first, a woman, remember last week we covered on the show how that woman sued Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and she was forced to get the vaccine, and she said she wouldn't do it, so they fired her as a result of it. Well, now she's won a multi-million-dollar lawsuit as a result, and I'm hoping that this opens up the floodgates to be able to go after these companies and the biopharmaceutical complex for this very reason. Well, Tucker Carlson responded to this woman winning this massive lawsuit and said he was excited about this. And he went on a bit of like a 3-minute rant here, which I think is amazing, specifically about an end to the vaccine liability shields that these vaccine manufacturers have in place. We've talked about this here on the show, that you can't go after these biopharmaceutical companies because the government has given them like blanket immunity shields. Tucker says it is time to end that right now. Listen.
Jury in Michigan just awarded a woman fired for not taking the vax millions of dollars. And I hope that that is a nationwide trend where everyone whose life was destroyed in that fit of lies and hysteria is made whole. I really hope so. And I do hope that Congress can immediately strip the blanket immunity from the vaccine makers. I don't understand that. I've sold products my whole life. I mean, imagine you have a product. You convince politicians to force the population to buy your product. Anyone who complains gets fired, and you can't be sued. I'm sorry. And I'm not attacking vaccines, by the way. I'm sure there are fine vaccines. I don't know. I'm not taking any of them, but it's okay if other people do. I'm not mad about people taking vaccines. I'm not mad about vaccines. But that's a scam. And anyone who says it's not a scam can just explain to me how it's not a scam. How is that not a scam? You're not allowed to sue? You can sue anybody for anything in this country. Anything. It's why we don't have playgrounds anymore. Because people made remember merry-go-rounds? Remember those? Is anyone old enough to remember a merry-go-round? They don't exist. They were awesome. I have like 10 friends who have fewer teeth than they were born with because of merry-go-rounds. But they have stronger spirits because they were great. They don't exist anymore because the trial bar decided we're going to get rich suing merry-go-round makers and people who were nice enough to build playgrounds. It's like so many good things in American life have been eliminated by the greed of the trial bar. You know, by the way, next time in the Caribbean, go down to the yacht basin, wherever you are, it doesn't matter what island you are, and look at the biggest boats and just ask like the boat guys and the matching polo shirts with the yacht names on them, like, what does the owner of this boat do for a living? And just keep a list of how many of them are trial lawyers, like a lot. You know, it was the tobacco settlement or asbestos or whatever. It was talcum powder or whatever case they were, and I'm not attacking all lawyers, though I want to, because I do hate them with a passion. But even if I liked lawyers, I would say, how is it that there's this one category that's exempt from the risk that all the rest of us who are involved in any kind of business face I have liability insurance on my house in case the UPS guy slips delivering a package from Amazon. But somehow Albert Bourla and all the other creepy billionaires who run these disgusting pharma companies are in no danger of being sued because their corrupt pals in Congress in 1986 gave them blanket immunity? Like, let's tear that down immediately. Oh, well, we can't compete. Well, why don't you just make a safer vaccine then? How's that sound? Why don't you face the same risk that every other person who conducts any other kind of commerce or lives in this country faces every single day? Oh, we can't. Oh, shut up. Go away. And so that's the first thing. I don't even know how I got off on that, but I'm so mad about it. It's so crazy.
I love it. I think it brings up in 1986 they give this blanket immunity. Mm-hmm. They can rush these things to market with no clinical trials.
Yeah.
Push it on the American people, and then you have no recourse.
Right.
Think about the amount, and it's because it's for public safety.
Yeah.
Right. It's for our safety that we have these blanket immunities.
We've covered it. How many in increasing volume? How many medicines or treatments or vaccines have been pushed to market with either emergency use authorization or fast tracked? Most recently, the RSV vaccine for pregnant women and elderly people, fast tracked. Why? Why is that we don't have mass deaths in those communities? So yeah, that is happening. All right, let's talk about finances, because the Department of Defense released their annual audit, and it's a doozy. It's almost comedy because they had to put a disclaimer of opinion trying to account for $824 billion that they're not quite sure where it all is. Now, this is the 7th year that they'd have to put this disclaimer of opinion. That means they're not quite sure. Like, here's our audit, but we have very low confidence that it's actually true or correct. But it's okay. Like, this is it.
Maybe off by $1 million.
More than that.
$1 trillion.
It's $1 trillion. Over $1 trillion in assets are unaccounted for. This is the 7th year in a row that the annual audit has failed to balance the books. Now, just think, what if you presented your taxes like that when April 15th came around? You told the government, I think this is what my assets are and what you can tax me on. I'll give you a clearer picture later. Deal with it. Here's a disclaimer. Like, here are my taxes. I'm paying you this, but there's a disclaimer that I'm not sure it's all valid, but deal with it. That's how it goes. Well, that's what we get as the American people. We send them our tax dollars. They funnel it into the military industrial complex, and we don't get an accounting back. $1 trillion sent, and we just don't get it. Now, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin released this press release about it. He said, well, the department has made real progress, and they are, quote, committed to achieving an unmodified, clean financial statement audit opinion by the end of 2028. So 4 years later, they'll get to us. Who knows where those assets will go? Some of them will be blown up in Ukraine. Some of them will be blown up in Gaza. We really don't know. And of course, this is undoubtedly a nightmare because they have to audit over 4,000 sites in over 160 countries. But the department spent $1 billion to do it. So $1 billion to conduct an audit that they're not sure is valid. We paid for that. They can't even get a good audit by spending $1 billion. Republican Congressman Tim Burchett says that the audit is unclear because there's all kinds of secret programs in there that they don't tell us. And in fact, today in the newsletter, we linked you to Tim Burchett on local news saying that this audit includes money for a secret UFO program, among other things. So will we really get clean books in 2028 if they're trying to not tell us what they're up to?
And after spending that $1 billion so that they can have their act cleaned up in 4 years, are they going to ever mention that missing trillion again? Or is that just they're going to come out in 4 years and go, okay, we're going to do better now. We figured it out.
Right.
We don't know where any of this missing assets are. But
well, it's all these black ops. Black ops programs.
For
right?
7 years, we haven't had clean books. This is the 7th year in a row. So if they hold themselves to the same standard as us, is most of us can sort of destroy our records after 7 years because we're pretty sure the IRS won't audit us behind that. So do they say, well, there was assets we didn't know about 7 years ago, but we're not worried about that. We're just going to figure it out by 2028. But you don't get back answers to say 2016 or what have you. We're not going to get that. We don't get that.
I would rather the Department of Defense, I would rather them say, we spent $1 trillion on secret programs. And that would make them look competent and shady. But to say, well, we lost it. Like, you're making yourselves look like idiots. How do you lose $1 trillion?
Nothing funny anymore in our chat says it's beyond belief what we do for Raytheon. Yeah, exactly. And so you're right. All of these sort of black ops programs that we're not allowed to know about, the secret reverse engineering of UFO programs. I mean, that's multi-billions of dollars that we've sent to Boeing and Northrop Grumman and Raytheon, right? For all of this reverse engineering programs, all of this stuff, all of this off the books stuff that Congress doesn't know about. And we're just footing the bill for it as American taxpayers.
It just chaps my ass because we're going through our Q3 in order to make our quarterly payments. And I'm like, we're doing this to the best of our ability. And every time I have a receipt, I put little notes on it just to make sure in case someone comes to audit me, because I don't get this pass. We have to do it right. but they don't have to, and it's money that we sent them. That's unconscionable.
Hopefully with this new DOGE, the Department of Government efficiency program under Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, that we'll get to the bottom of some of this. We'll see. Well, liberals are freaking out this morning over MSNBC and their favorite morning show, Morning Joe, which is like the worst thing in the world. So what happened? Well, liberals are freaking out. This is just a sample of it. Here's Joe from Jersey. She says, F Joe and Mika, F Morning Joe, and F MSNBC if they keep them on their effing air. So she really is upset about Morning Joe. Why are they so upset about Morning Joe all of a sudden? Because, you have all these layoffs coming to legacy media, CNN and MSNBC in the wake of the election. There's Mika in her fall wardrobe.
What's wrong with that? I'm wearing brown today.
A little brown zip up. And there's Joe Scarborough, who I thought used to be a conservative. I mean, he was a member of Congress as a conservative, but I guess now he's a liberal New York elite, so now he's liberal. Anyway, so what happened? Well, apparently they met with Donald Trump. Donald Trump asked them to come down to Mar-a-Lago and have a meeting. Like, hey, how do we move forward as a country if, you guys are going to be on the air every day saying lies? Like, is there a way we can find some common ground on all of this? So
Wait. Did they say he invited them? Because I listened to it and they said we had the opportunity to go. So it's not clear if they didn't invite themselves.
You can't just go to meet George. You can't just go to meet President Trump.
But they have connections if they wanted to do it and say, okay, look, we're losing our audience. They are bleeding their audience. They basically collapsed after the Trump win.
Well, maybe they pleaded with them, like,
do
hey,
you think
have a
that
meeting.
They might have asked. The way they present it says to me that they asked. But you read into it for yourself. Let's play it.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications.
Oh, so we're going to start fresh and have a sort of, we're just going to open a dialogue. So all the past, 8 years of Russia hoax and all of that stuff, we're just going to put that on the shelf. And we're going to start a fresh dialogue. We're going to be open to President Trump. Is this sort of a movement? You've seen the Los Angeles Times doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So they're realizing they're bleeding so many people from watching their shows. Maybe the only way that they can reclaim some of that glory is to actually, not be biased.
Well, what they say is, look, so many of Americans, almost 80 million, decided that election denialism wasn't important to them, which is like a stupid way of describing Trump voters. And they decided that the things we've been feeding them were not important. We want to figure out why and actually talk to President Trump. So it's like a backhanded compliment or something, like you didn't care about the things we told you to, so we want to understand why. You don't actually have to talk to Donald Trump at all in order to do that, but they sort of decided to do it anyway. Okay.
Well, and the writing's on the wall. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but they aren't getting viewership anymore, and CNN and all these places are laying a lot of people off, and so they're probably in fear of their money. I mean, these people make $10, $20, $30 million a year. That's a huge chunk of money to lose. And where are they going to go after this? It's not like they can start a podcast. It'll be like another Don Lemon. He started his own podcast and he's not doing anything with it. So
but no one watched.
Right.
Yeah. The writing's on the wall. They have to do this.
Well, just the other day, Glenn Greenwald put this on X that the ad week numbers showing MSNBC's viewership is terrible. Even in their primetime shows, they can't get 75,000 people to watch. Now think about the reach of independent media and 75,000 people in their primetime. Who the heck are they talking to except your miserable liberal grandma? Like literally nobody wants to watch that shit. And so they have to figure out why. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see these news channels try to do a mea culpa without saying so. At the very least, they're admitting it. We didn't get it. We need to start from fresh. We need to go to the source and figure out what we didn't get. Most of them, and the LA Times said the same thing. Jeff Bezos said the same thing at his Washington Post newspaper. How many of them will actually say, okay, this is what we didn't get, we apologize, and how many of them will just quietly try to pivot and desperately cling to their audience? Who knows?
Well, we thank you for subscribing. It's a free show to subscribe to our show. We cover the news every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We're live here, so thank you guys. If you're subscribing to us on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, so thank you guys so much for that.
I'm so curious why people would watch them, knowing that they lied about the COVID vaccines, knowing that they're lying. I mean, most people don't know that they're lying about Ukraine, but like so many things there are holes in. And I asked my mom this: why do you let Rachel Maddow keep lying to you? Why does she get the privilege to keep doing that? I'm so curious why some things don't hold weight, but she gets to keep spinning your narrative.
People compartmentalize things, right? People, like even people who watch our show, you guys are very open, and you guys are very flexible, and when we criticize President-elect Trump for certain things, you're open to that. We're not in the tank for anybody, and I think you need to be flexible, but it's uncomfortable to be flexible. And so people love to like remain in their little echo chambers,
right?
And they do not like to be pushed on anything of any of their worldviews, right? There was somebody in the chat just a few minutes ago that said, "Hey, Clayton and Natali, why do you guys not talk about why Putin started this war in Ukraine?" And I wrote him back, Donald, and I said, "Donald, it's because it's not true. Mm-hmm. This war started in 2014 when the United States pushed Russia into war. Do your research on it. We've covered it at length here, but people have like a very narrow, they don't want to do the research, and they want to stick to their sort of compartmentalized echo chamber. That's why they don't want to come outside and be uncomfortable."
And I think, and I think also, why should somebody doubt that the mainstream media is telling the truth? And it's like a lot of people don't know how to go outside of that. They don't know how to do research. They don't know where to go. And that's why I feel like that's the biggest injustice to the American people, because if the media would inform them, then they would know who they need to be fighting or what they need to be fighting, but they don't. And I said, I argue that, how do they know that? I mean, it's the mainstream media. So some people have been watching it for years and thinking they're getting the truth.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're learning more about how many billions of dollars, the Harris-Walz campaign wasted on stupid crap. The Harris-Walz campaign is still soliciting donations under various types of emails. Like, for instance, they claim they're still helping to fight key Senate and House races. Do you believe that if you donate to the Kamala Harris-Walz campaign now, after they are already the losers, that they will funnel money into down ballot races? Do you believe that when you know that they are about $500 million to $500 billion, is $1 billion? Sorry, $500 million in debt? Would you, raise your hand if you think that's a worthy cause right now to donate to, and you believe that? Now, the New York Times over the weekend went deeply into the finances of the campaign. They claim that they spent roughly $100 million per week. And now we know the full price tag of the Kamala Harris town hall event with Oprah, that was closer to $2.5 million, not $1 million like we reported last week. According to the Daily Beast, it was this. And again, we showed you Oprah saying there were over 1,000 screens here for people to video chat in. We built this set in Michigan because it's such an important swing state. It does look like an expensive production. And Philip and David rang in and said, absolutely, that's expensive. And her crew should have been paid. But many media outlets are saying she could have made a contribution and paid her crew herself because she believed in the cause so much. So are we to believe that she really believed in that, or she just took a good production opportunity for her company? And according to other reporting, now the Kamala Harris campaign burned through $1.5 billion in just 15 weeks. And here are some of the ways that the money was spent. This Las Vegas Sphere ad that went up just a few days before the election cost $900,000. Now think about that. If you're a $5 voter, you're thinking, okay, my $5 is going to get another ad to reach another voter. It's going to reach out. Maybe you think that's worth it, and maybe you don't, right? I might feel a little burned knowing that the campaign also spent $7,000 on boba tea, $40,000 at a sort of fancy ice cream spot, $40,000 on ice cream alone in August. Now, of course, the Trump campaign also did feed its staff, and those staffers work hard. Absolutely, they should get fed. They should get well taken care of, right? But it's sort of like Trump was spending on Taco Bell which is sort of cheaper, and Kamala Harris is buying boba tea, which is like $7 a pop. It's super expensive. My daughter loves it.
Bob Pierce in our chat, in our YouTube chat, says, I'm a former Democrat, and Nancy Pelosi is texting me for $100 to $500 donations because they went over budget.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a former Democrat like that in California and getting a text from Nancy Pelosi asking you for $100 or $500 to help out a failed Harris-Walz campaign because they couldn't friggin' balance their books and wasted money, tens of thousands of dollars on stupid stuff?
Right.
That didn't, I mean, they were paying off these celebrities to come and stand there for 10 minutes, like Beyonce and Cardi B to come, like who?
Well, there's no evidence that any of the celebrities themselves were paid for, but the venues and the events were very expensive and fancy. We don't know, and we've searched through the documents to see if there's anything, any campaign contributions that were in the FEC, but we haven't seen it yet. But still, these are sort of...
I would be curious to know what our taxpayers have paid, or what our tax dollars have gone towards ice cream from the Kamala and Biden combined. Like, just how much have we, the American people, spent on ice cream? Because we know that's Biden's favorite, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, they are supposed to keep campaign finances separate, even though she is the vice president. So, you know, the taxpayers were paying to at least her security detail and things like that. It's hard to keep separate when you are the incumbent, as she liked to pretend she was not. Some other things, they, you know, spent $15,000 on Uber Eats and DoorDash. Like, they couldn't just go pick it up themselves. And, you know, they just, it's clear they were not trying to economize because they didn't think they had to, because they were raising money so handily. So Oprah still says she was not paid a dime, but it was just her production company. So again, it's fair. You want everybody who was working hard to be paid. Absolutely. We want that on both sides. We don't want anybody cheated in a campaign, but a lot of vendors are saying, well, we're still waiting for, like, the florist or whatever, still waiting to be paid. And that's not right. But when you think about, if this campaign couldn't even finance run their books cleanly, how are they going to run the country cleanly? So let me know what you think about that, whether you're a donor or not. We have more news to get to. We're going to talk to Scott Ritter coming up here about whether or not this NATO declaration of war is really the escalation that we may think it is in the run-up to the very end of the Biden-Harris administration. Should we be terrified running into Christmas? We're also going to talk about the Diddy tapes, whether or not President Trump was responsible for accelerating the release of this and the indictment and what have you. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Armra, because if you are interested in optimizing your health, then you might be interested in how colostrum could be a supplement to your lifestyle. Colostrum is the first fluid that mammals produce before they nurse, and it is said to be full of, basically, it's like the fountain of youth. When you're a nursing mother, they say this is basically everything your baby needs. It's full of nutrition and will help their immune system, and that also has been shown to work for adults. Over 5,000 research publications have documented the health properties of colostrum, and you can get it in this form of supplement through Armra. Now, you can get 15% off your first order by going to tryarmra.com/redacted. Armra is a sustainably sourced from grass-fed cows on dairy farms. And so this is something that, again, you should research for yourself, because it's said to optimize sleep, optimize recovery from your workouts, and your immune system as well. So it fortifies your entire gut wall system, optimizing your microbiome. So one more time, you can get 15% off your first order by heading over to tryarmra, that's tryarmra.com/redacted.
Well, in his last dying breath before leaving office, President Biden has given Ukraine authorization to start using long-range weapons to attack Russia. The timing of all of this is very interesting, according to the New York Times, and then confirmed by the Wall Street Journal that, yes, this is in fact the case. And just a short time ago, the son of George Soros posted on X, "This is great news," that President Biden has for the first time authorized Ukrainian forces to use Western-made long-range weapons to strike inside Russia. Well, Putin has responded, and our next guest is the former UN weapons inspector, former U.S. Marine Scott Ritter, who posted on Telegram just a short time ago that this is an existential threat to Russia and really a pivotal moment in this war, and we wanted to invite Scott on to provide some analysis. Scott, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So how do you believe, there's been a lot of big moments in this war. Do you think this perhaps is the most pivotal moment right now? And why do you think it's an existential threat for the future of Russia?
Well, first, let's start with two things. One, this isn't the first time that this issue has come up to the White House level. If you recall, back in September 13th, Joe Biden held a meeting at the White House. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, came to this meeting with a British diplomatic pouch inside which were documents that Starmer wanted Biden to sign, authorizing Great Britain to release the Storm Shadow cruise missiles so that Ukraine could strike targets deep inside Russia, and also have the United States do the same thing with the ATACMS missile. The day before, September 12th, Vladimir Putin made an appearance on television and said, if this happens, it will be a declaration of war against Russia and will be treated accordingly. That the United States and Great Britain will have become parties to the conflict. NATO will have become a party to the conflict. On September 13th, because apparently Biden didn't get the message, the Russian ambassador to the United Nations made the same thing, that a declaration of war will have been made if this happens. The Russian ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, was in conversation, was called by people close to the Biden administration, no longer in government, but still talking, saying, is this true? And Antonov said, yes. Not only that, the United States will not be able to hide behind the Atlantic Ocean, that this war will go nuclear and the targets will include the United States. And at that point in time, Joe Biden backed off. We were one signature away from global annihilation. The reason why I bring this up is nothing has changed in the Russian calculus. Nothing has changed. Russia has said that these missiles cannot be used without being directly handled by the United States, that the targeting is done by the United States. Every aspect of the launch procedures is done by the United States, so that these missiles are used against Russian soil. It will be an American attack against Russia, and that's an act of war. Russia will treat it as such and respond accordingly. They said the same thing about the French Scalp missiles and the British Dark Shadow, I think it is, missiles. So the whole world knows where Russia stands on this. Now, many in Europe have said that Russia is bluffing, and many have been calling for the United States to call Russia's bluff. They don't believe that Russia will carry these actions out. Now, before we go on to the thing, I can say this, that Russian sources in Moscow, close to the leadership, have not yet convinced themselves that this is not a psychological warfare information operation being carried out by actors. I remind you that the Washington Post reported with some authority about a phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin that never took place. And yet they made that report based upon sources inside the Trump team. Here we have unnamed sources from the New York Times, making this claim. The Wall Street Journal is what? Confirming the unnamed sources? Who knows? But what we don't have is an official statement by the United States government. And so the Russians right now appear to be taking a wait and see attitude. But as it was emphasized, the decisions have already been made. The idea that Russia is going to go into some sort of conclave where Putin is going to be asking people what to do, how do we respond, is absurd, because as Vladimir Putin and his inner circle have said, the decision has already been made. If you attack us, we will treat this as an attack against Russia by the United States, and we will act accordingly, meaning we will strike targets not just in Ukraine, but in the nations that have attacked us. This is as clear a signal as can be. The Russians haven't deviated from their position one iota. And so the other thing I was told too is that Russia, and this is playing off of a statement made by a senior Russian politician in the Russian Senate. He said that Russia will use weapons that have never been seen before, and these weapons will have a catastrophic effect on Kiev, on Ukraine. Basically, it will depopulate Kiev and make Ukraine non-functional as a modern nation state. Now, there's some speculation as to what these weapons are. They're not nuclear. The belief is that they are some sort of massive fuel air explosive / EMP weapon, electromagnetic pulse weapon, that will flatten Kiev and take out all electronics. And this is being made by a man who isn't outside of the government, but in the government, and he's saying it as a statement of fact. So that's what we have to look forward to. If Ukraine does this, there's a good chance Kiev will cease to exist.
So I just want to unpack that. They believe at this point, according to your sources, that they haven't convinced themselves that this isn't some sort of a psychological game being played right now by Washington. In other words, so whatever the puppet masters are trying to do, because it's certainly not Biden. I mean, he's out to lunch. It's certainly not Kamala Harris. She's out to a wine lunch. So who exactly is running the show behind the scenes right now and trying to play this game? Do you believe there's truth to the fact that there are long-range weapons ready to be used? I mean, I know they've agreed to it. Do you think that, I guess I'm just trying to unpack that, where they sort of sit right now. Are they scrambling on red alert inside of Moscow right at this moment?
Well, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. We know that they have the weapons. The United States has given them ATACMS weapons. The United States, Great Britain has given them the Storm Shadow. That's what it is, Storm Shadow. And France has given them the Scalp missile. So these weapons are in the possession of Ukraine. And indeed, Ukraine has used these weapons against Russian forces in the territories of dispute. And this is why Russia hasn't treated those attacks as an attack against Russia proper, because those territories, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Lugansk, and even Crimea, are considered territories in dispute by Ukraine. Kursk is not a territory in dispute. Kursk is a land which is part of the Russian Federation. And this is the other thing people need to understand. The United States and NATO helped train, equip, and direct the Ukrainian forces that invaded Kursk earlier this year. This was a NATO invasion of Ukraine. And now what appears to be the case is that the United States and NATO want Ukraine to remain in Kursk up until Donald Trump's swearing in on January 20th, so as to complicate any peace agreement, to make it more difficult for Trump to disengage. And so the caveat for these ATACMS weapons is that the United States has cleared their use in Kursk to strike Russian forces in Kursk, as if this is some sort of limiting factor that Russia won't respond. Russia has said that this will be an attack against Russia because it is an attack against Russia. Now, the source I spoke to today made it clear that there's no panic in Russia at all, that the Russians are very steely-eyed, clear-eyed. They know what needs to be done. They're ready to do what needs to be done, but they're not going to jump the gun until either Ukraine actually attacks them or they get an official statement from the White House that says this is what we're doing. Who is leaking this is the big question.
Yeah.
We know that the Washington Post outright fabricated a story, and that fabrication was designed to be disruptive to Donald Trump and his transition team. The sole purpose of that call was to create tension between Russia and the Trump team, and tension between the Trump team and the White House. It was a made-up story, fabricated. This is the Washington Post we're talking about. They made up a story. The New York Times is of the same political bent as the Washington Post. They are extremely anti-Trump. And so there is a distinct possibility, I would even say at this juncture, because there has been silence from the White House, probability that this is a manufactured story, that there are no sources, that these sources are made up, and that this is a deliberate effort by the New York Times, just like the Washington Post did, to manufacture a story designed to be disruptive to Trump. I think many people are trying to get the Trump administration or Trump transition team to aggressively commit to a policy posture on Ukraine by creating a set of facts and getting Trump to respond to them, thereby tipping his hand as to what he plans to do. Because right now there's a lot of unknowns about what exactly Donald Trump plans to do on January 20th when it comes to Ukraine. So I think this story could be an effort to draw that information out from the Trump administration. But the danger is that the sources are indeed from the White House. We know that Joe Biden is in the Amazon right now, and
mentally and figuratively, yes.
Yeah, his cognitive capabilities are diminished. He may not be the right guy to make this announcement. Kamala Harris is not the right person to make this announcement. And the question is who? Would Jake Sullivan come out and make the announcement? Would Tony Blinken come out and make the announcement? Lloyd Austin would be an unlikely character because he has been against this policy. If you recall, back in September, Lloyd Austin told Zelensky no. And when Blinken got ahead of the game and said yes, Austin called the White House and said, no, this will be a war that we don't want. We can't afford. We can't win. So, and again, that's another reason why there's a good possibility this is a psychological operation, because the Defense Department is dead set against this. They understand the consequences. They don't believe that Russia is bluffing. But we could see a Biden administration at war with itself. Tony Blinken is out there aggressively saying, we will send money every single day to Ukraine up until the time we can no longer send money. He's very aggressive on this. So we may be seeing some sort of internal fight between the State Department and the Department of Defense about this. Maybe Blinken had somebody leak this story to get Biden to jump in on it. Because what we saw is France and Great Britain and NATO have all jumped on this story as if it's fact, which tells me that I would hesitate to think that Macron and Starmer and Rutte would be making official statements based upon a New York Times article. One would believe that there was a phone call made before they commit publicly. And we've seen Figaro back off. We've seen the Financial Times back off from this story because it appears that maybe Macron and Starmer did respond to a New York Times story, and there's nothing of substance to back this up. So if that's the case, we may live through the week. But if Ukraine does in fact attack Russia, as I've been told, the decisions have already been made. There will be no discussion. Very catastrophic results for Ukraine and NATO will be the product of it. And that means war. And that means World War III. That means nuclear weapons. That means we won't celebrate Christmas. I just want everybody to understand what I just said. For all the people out there saying, well, it's not a big, you won't celebrate Christmas. You won't celebrate Hanukkah. You won't celebrate Eid. You won't celebrate Kwanzaa. You won't celebrate anything. Life will be over forever. That's where we're at. So pray this is an information operation. Pray this is psychological. Pray the New York Times is as corrupt as the Washington Post has shown, because we don't want this story to be true. We don't. Zelensky seems ready to commit suicide for his country and take the world down with him.
It's going to upset George Soros, who desperately wants this. And let's just also pray that Vladimir Putin is as reserved as he seems to have been over the past few years, and is not taking any kind of bait in this. I'll get you out of here on this, Scott. What do you think the incoming Trump administration? It's a very interesting period right now. President-elect, he doesn't have the power yet. He has sort of soft power, but he doesn't have legislative power, and he doesn't have executive power until, of course, he gets in on January 20th. What do you think President Trump is going to do over these next few months as it relates to Ukraine?
I think what we're looking at is this is an existential issue. And so therefore, if I were advising President-elect Trump, I would say our silence empowers those who are seeking an existential fight with Russia. There are some hesitancy about the Logan Act, but the Logan Act has been deemed by many to be unconstitutional. Also, it doesn't prevent the president-elect from outlining policies. Normally, there's courtesy that's given to the lame duck administration where you say, you are the president, you make your policies, and we will remain silent. But Trump did run on a platform that was diametrically opposed to the Biden administration's policies. On the issue of Ukraine, I think it's imperative that Donald Trump put NATO on notice, put Great Britain on notice, Macron on notice, Zelensky on notice, that on January 20th, all of this ends. And I would be even harsher. I would tell Rutte that on January 21st, you will cease to be the Secretary General of NATO, because NATO will cease to exist, because I will pull the plug and you can't exist without me. If you think you can take my country to war, you're wrong. And I would tell the British the same thing. We won't be there for you. If you want to do this, Russia has carte blanche to do anything they want against you. We won't be there because we don't want this war. And I would tell the same thing to the French. Now, that's a little bit extreme, but I think the president-elect needs to come out with a statement that says, we are opposed to everything that Biden is doing. This is not going to be the policy of the United States starting on January 20th. And anybody who acts on this policy will be held to account by my administration, because I'm telling you, the future of America is not going in this direction. If he doesn't make a statement like this, then Biden owns the narrative, and we may find ourselves in a nuclear war.
Amen. Scott Ritter, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us, as always, with your analysis, and hopefully let's pray for actually have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, and I think, it's a great point. And the statement, of course, that President Trump just made about an hour ago, it was pretty strong. It wasn't exactly what Scott wanted there, but it was pretty strong. And basically denouncing the Biden administration for getting us close to nuclear war. But I think the president could be stronger on it. The president-elect could be stronger on it and owning this position right now.
Sure.
Coming out saying, we are absolutely not sending any more money to Ukraine.
Right.
We're not going to be sending any more weapons to Ukraine. This needs to stop. He did call for an immediate cessation of violence and no more shooting. But it didn't quite go to the lengths that Scott just said there. So, but we're watching that closely.
It is very anxietizing to have an outgoing administration that is so pro-war.
It really is. Yeah, it's deeply disturbing.
Maybe I'm just like super, super naive, and I'll admit it if that's the truth. But I just don't get what the end game is. Like, so if you continually pump weapons into Ukraine, like, is the idea are war hawks really just sitting somewhere thinking, like, are the people that are supporting this like that the Ukraine is going to wipe Russia off the map, which is not going to happen. So I mean, it's just like it's like the only thing I could ever come back to is it's just defense contractor money. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's about the supremacy of the U.S. dollar, right? It's right now the U.S. dollar is declining incredibly quickly, and you see the rise of the BRICS nations, the rise of the BRICS currency, Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, India, all of these countries coming together right now to prop up and support a currency that's backed by gold. And the United States, and look, the Trump administration now there's been talk about ending the Fed in the United States, maybe taking us back to some sort of gold standard in the United States. By the way, did you know that under the United States Constitution, paper currency is illegal? We are not allowed to have paper currency in the United States. Read the United States Constitution. Only gold and silver. And so, I think that's a big piece of this right now. You're seeing the rise of Russia, the rise of the BRICS currency, the decline of the U.S. dollar. I mean, that's why we're such big proponents of investing in precious metals here. And by the way, it's a perfect segue to our friends at Lear Capital, who are huge supporters of allowing you to invest in precious metals. You can buy gold, have gold coins shipped right to your house, store it in your gun safe if you want to. But as Ron Paul says, like, the United States dollar is collapsing. You better pay attention to what's happening. Do you want your family's future tied to fake paper currency? Or do you want to own some silver? Do you want to own some gold? if you've got U.S. dollars sitting in a U.S. savings account, I would seriously consider moving that over and purchasing precious metals. You can store it in your house. You can have it stored off-site in a 24-hour guarded facility. It's totally up to you. Natalie and I are big and huge investors in gold and silver. And I think, if you just start reading about it, understand what it's about, it can protect you and your family. You can actually call them right now and get a free gold report so you understand actually how to invest in gold. Bank of America, UBS all see gold going over $3,000 an ounce. So it's going to surge, and silver as well. Anyway, call their 800 number. They've got a great American team that will answer the phone. 1-800-613-3557. Speak with them. Talk with them. Tell them we sent you. Or just go to their website, learredacted.com, to learn more about it. I just seriously think right now, you have all these central banks like Russia and China buying up as much gold as they can get their hands on. So important for our families to be able to do the same thing. So buy gold right now. Don't let the Democrats take it away from you like FDR tried to take it away from you.
Not tried to. He did.
He did take it.
He succeeded
He made it illegal.
in doing that. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, lawyers for Diddy say that the federal government leaked the tapes of Diddy beating his girlfriend because of a slow news day for Donald Trump. Now, of course, Diddy and everybody deserves the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And he has said, his lawyer has said, he will fight this and prove his innocence. So we should offer him that benefit of the doubt. But this is very strange, and it kind of shows how the elites are behaving strangely. The federal government doesn't have an answer for why this tape was leaked. It's strange. Okay, so that's all we're going to take away from this, because we know, we think that a lot of powerful people are connected to this. So that's where I'm going with this. So let's look at the way that Newsweek presented this reports. They do not say that Donald Trump had anything to do with leaking these tapes. They say that someone was trying to take advantage of the lull in the Trump news coverage. So here's how Newsweek reports it. They say that Diddy and his legal team accused the federal government of leaking the 2016 video of when he assaulted his then girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, because they knew that there was going to be a slow news day for former president, or now president-elect, Donald Trump. The court documents obtained by Newsweek say that Combs' attorneys suggest several reasons why the Department of Homeland Security is most likely to have given the video to CNN. So Combs' lawyer are guessing that the Diddy tapes of him beating his girlfriend were probably leaked for a few reasons. Number one, they weren't sold to TMZ. They were just given to CNN. Now, if someone outside of the government had them, they would have known that they were very valuable. They could have pocketed a lot of money by selling them to TMZ, but instead someone just gave them to CNN, suggesting that it was not an outsider. Okay, that's a valid point, right? We have to put some weight, some credibility in that point. Also, the tapes were released on May 17th. May 17th is the day that Barron Trump graduated from high school in Florida, and President Trump's legal team had been asking the court to give him that day off of the trial because he wanted to go see his son graduate. The court did grant him that day, mercifully, and so somebody knew that there would be no coverage of the Trump trial on that date, so the story could not be buried. Who knew that? Okay, another valid point. Well, most of us knew that because we knew that Trump was asking for that day off, but why then? Who had it? Who wanted that day? Now, federal prosecutors deny the allegations because they say that the government didn't even have possession of the tape prior to CNN publicizing it. So who knows if that's true or not? No one inside the Trump team is saying that they had anything to do with it. Why would the Trump team stick their nose into that when they had another major criminal trial? We don't know. These are just questions. I ask the questions here. I don't have all the answers. Now, the raid on Diddy's house happened in March. Did the federal government get that tape in March? We don't know. We would like to know. They say Ventura herself, the victim, that her lawyers never had it. She had been claiming this happened. This was obviously very validating to her claim, but she had never seen it. So who did it? When we get a Trump cabinet, will we be able to find out who did it? When did they have it? Did they have it before and they're lying to us? We don't know. Now, Harvey Levin is the founder of TMZ. I don't love TMZ, but I got to imagine this guy knows some stuff, right? He makes this totally valid point. Why was Hollywood so up in arms around the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein? But why are they so silent on Diddy? Watch.
It is true that Hollywood gets loud very quickly in certain cases. They did certainly with Harvey Weinstein and others. They have been very, very silent here. And I agree with you. I don't think just because, look, every celebrity in the world seems to have gone to one of these white parties. I mean, everybody wanted to go. And if you got an invitation, you went. So you can pretty much count everybody high profile has been to one of these parties. That's not disqualifying. That doesn't mean it's untoward. We're not talking about white parties. We're talking about after parties. We're talking about threesomes. We're talking about all sorts of things that are not those parties. But that said, there are lots of videos that Diddy kept over the years that have been now seized by the feds. And a lot of these videos are also going to some of the civil lawyers. Busby told us he has gotten a slew of these videos. And I think there's just panic in Hollywood. Am I on that video? Was I in some situation in 1999 or 2002 where it might be interpreted a certain way or might end up in trial? I think there's a lot of panic. And that's what we're hearing. And people just don't want the association, and they don't want to talk about it. I think it's that simple.
Panic.
Yeah. I mean, they're not that concerned about Me Too, anyone who was a victim of this, because they might be connected to it.
Just a quick thought, but with Harvey Weinstein, the victims were Hollywood, where this is the victims it was perpetrated upon by Hollywood, and that's probably a major difference in why because they didn't have to cover up the Weinstein thing because they were the victims, but in this case it's the opposite.
Right. So it shows who they really care about, which types of victims. They only care about the elite victims, I suppose, not the powerless. And of course, we all want names. I'm not super confident we will get it, but I'm holding out some hope. Now, late last week, prosecutors said that Diddy was using disallowed methods of communication from prison. So he's communicating with people outside of prison, either to manage public relations or perhaps bribe other victims to stay quiet. Here's how Page 6 report this. They say he's either calling people not on his approved list or by using other inmates' phones, or else he calls someone that is on his approved list and asks them to bring in a three-way call with someone else that's not on the list. Is he bribing victims? Is he managing his public relations campaign, trying to get certain things out there? We don't know exactly, but those are the things that they're alleging. They also say that he released this video of his kids calling him on his birthday in order to influence the jury to have sympathy for his family. I feel kind of dirty and heartbroken to show you this, but this is part of the case. It obviously has nothing to do with the youngest of these kids. We can surmise that, but they're saying that this video released to his son's Instagram is part of a PR campaign. And I'm going to show you a minute of it.
Keep going,
go. Happy birthday to Daddy.
Yay!
I love y'all so much.
We love you too.
Love you, Pops.
I can't wait to see y'all.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see y'all. And I'm just want to say I'm proud of y'all, especially the girls. I mean, all of y'all, but just for being strong. Thank y'all for being strong, and thank y'all for being by my side and supporting me. I love y'all. I got the best family in the world. My birthday, I'm happy. Thanks to y'all giving me this call. Thank you very much. I love y'all.
We love you more too. Can't wait to see you in a couple of days.
I'll see y'all in a couple of days.
Say it again.
What you say? I love you, Daddy.
Yeah.
I love you too, baby.
Yo, Pops.
Hi, we're right here.
Chance right here on the phone too. Pops, love eating all your cake, so you're not gonna have none left.
Jeez.
All right. I hate that.
Propaganda at its finest, right?
Well, let's give the children a benefit of the doubt. Some of them, maybe the older ones know something. Maybe they totally believe their dad is innocent. Maybe he is. We still, again, have not had a conviction. So we don't know. Their children, if you actually believe your father is innocent, you would want to put something out there to show the world your family. I get that. And let's look at the children put out this statement right after the arrest saying, we're devastated. We believe that this is baseless. These are conspiracy theories. We're going to fight it.
But let's be clear.
Our family's strong, right?
But let's be clear. Like Karine Jean-Pierre in the White House press briefing room, we have video of him beating a woman in a hotel. Right?
Yeah.
And he came out and said, there's no excuse for it. I did that. I'm trying to be a better person.
Yes.
So that's on video.
That's
right?
not what he's currently in prison for.
Correct. Right. But when you're holding up someone in high regard and you're saying perhaps he's totally innocent. Part of that is that video. That video has been part is part of evidence, right? So that is actually part of this trial. Going to be part of this, part of why he's behind bars.
Not really. It's about the weapons and the parties and the underage.
But
I don't think she has her own. She's settled separately, so that's not part of this. And again, it just sort of. I'm very torn about it. Like, it would have been more authentic for that to have been private. And that's what most of the comments say. Like, this should just be for your family. These kids absolutely should be able to wish their father a happy birthday. But, do we need to see this? And this is how the federal government is saying that they believe that, let's put this up from page 6, that the federal government says that the defendants carefully curated direction that the children posted a video to their respective social media accounts in order to, influence a fair trial, to make clear that, that this is a criminal proceeding and that this will influence the jury. I mean, I don't know, most perpetrators are parents. And so, I want to sort of leave room for these kids to say this because they're children and not blame them. But also, the prosecution is saying, well, this is a PR campaign. Feels awful to watch, because obviously a 2-year-old little girl missing her daddy does not feel good for anybody. So what do you think? Is it right or wrong for either side to bring the kids into this? Let me know. I want out of this story. I don't even want to touch it. As a mom, you can't look at that little girl and be awful. Like, yeah. So, okay, let's move on. We're going to tell you about our friends over at Buy Optimizers. You're going to say goodbye to Clayton because he needs to get in the carpool line. Go.
I will.
Say goodbye.
I'm waiting.
Go.
Okay.
I just want you to know that Clayton's leaving.
We got super chats though.
We are going to do your
Rumble
super
rants.
chats, and but I am going to do that with the Foster boys. And Clayton's going to not be late for carpool. But before we do that, we want to tell you about our friends over at Buy Optimizers because, hey, if you like free stuff, you're in luck because Buy Optimizers Black Friday deal starts now. And they're giving away free gifts with purchase. That's right, free. It's an advance invite to a Black Friday deal for the entire month of November. And this is their best sale yet. So if you are feeling stressed out or you haven't been sleeping well lately, well, you're not alone. And you might be able to change all the chaos. You can't change the chaos out there, but you can start supplementing with magnesium, which pretty much every health expert agrees is great for optimizing your health, not just your sleep, improve your mood, feel refreshed, manage your stress, balance your hormone, all in one bottle. So you get all 7 critical forms of magnesium. Pretty much every function in your body gets upgraded with magnesium. So right now you can use the code Redacted by heading over to buyoptimizers.com/redacted. Again, use the code Redacted for their Black Friday mega sale all throughout November by going to buyoptimizers.com/redacted. Plus, you get up to $100 in free gifts with purchase. Okay, so now you got just me. I would love to see your super chats and your Rumble rants, and David reads that out for us. So we have a few minutes before we end the show. So thank you so much for sending along your comments. Go ahead, David.
All right, so no Rumble rants today, and I'm going to start putting the super chats on screen for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you from the Latrix. Kovfef, anyone? What do you guys know what that means?
Kofefe?
That was that.
Isn't that something Trump said?
Tweet. Yeah, he tweeted like it was like a tweet that came out at like 2:00 in the morning, early in his presidency, I believe, and it was just that was the entire tweet. Was just
I remember that. That was fun.
Yep.
It was like a butt dial. Yep. Okay, $1.99 from Lance Caps. Peanut was an overreach of government power. Absolutely right. And I saw a funny meme over the weekend. Is like, more squirrels and raccoons have been arrested than Epstein clients. So, yes. $2 from D. Owen Powell. The end of times, no, but perhaps the end of ours. Okay. Yeah.
I would also argue on your last point that the same number of Epsteins and squirrels were euthanized. So.
Right? Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. Okay. Another one?
Yep.
Okay. From Sean Sullivan, thank you so much. Pharma will take decades to release medicines if they are at a high litigation risk. Oh, okay. So if they actually, yes. And we might get safer medicines as well, that if they were at risk of litigation, they might actually take their time a little bit more. $1 from Corey Sexton from the History Channel, Ultimate Soldier, Episode 6. Okay, you're suggesting that we watch that. Thank you, Ultimate Soldier. From Big John, didn't get notification that you all went live. Yes, I'm sorry that sometimes that takes a very long time and YouTube is not reliable with their notifications, especially not with content like ours. And I apologize, but you can remember that we're here every day at 2 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Thursday. So we will be off next week, though, for the Thanksgiving holiday because we just follow our kids' vacation schedule. So when they're off, we're off mostly, except for the whole summer. $2 from RR. They can eat at a military tent. No more ice cream, meaning the Kamala Harris campaign that they don't get any more fancy boba teas. I mean, I hate to begrudge, them their fancy boba teas, but it is a little out of touch. $7 for a boba tea. Those are so expensive. Does your daughter like them, Philip? Teens seem to love boba tea.
Yeah, she does. She doesn't drink them very often. She's more of an unsweetened iced tea person, so that's what she drinks.
Yeah.
I do not like boba tea at all.
You don't?
No.
Oh, I sometimes think it's fun. I like the milk tea.
The little things. Blah.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, well, you're a party pooper. You're a boba tea party pooper. All right. From Mr. Wink, is there anything in this country that's honest? I know. I was thinking about it today about, the things the government does versus private industry. And I'm like, I don't know. It's hard to make a case for, in the words of Thomas Sowell, you want the government to get involved in things? Do you know what happens when they do? $4.99 from Choke Dealer. In your opinion, what would be better to have stock in? Precious metal or actually have it in, what's that emoji?
OBJ?
Do you mean actually have the metals or stock in metals? Actually, that's something that you can call Lear Capital and they can teach you either things. I like to actually own it in various methods. I've got some in an IRA, and we also do have some in the house and some overseas as well, just sort of hedge our bets. But the idea of having stock in the metals, you have to look and see if they are fee-based accounts, because a lot of times they can be like an exchange-traded funds or some kind of mutual fund in metals, and you pay high fees. So that's something that it's a good question, and my preference is to have it without those fees. So thank you for that. $2 from Rod. $2 Trump pardons Diddy. Really? Okay. I would take that bet. How are we going to do it? You're on.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for those super chats. And you can get those in early, and then David keeps track of those when he's here. So yes, we will be off Thanksgiving, but we're here all the week. Please tip your waitress. And we were talking about this in a break earlier, the team and I, that a lot of times we want you to have original sources and links to things, but it's hard to put those in the YouTube description. That's why we're very bullish that you subscribe to the newsletter, because it's totally free. There's nothing on the newsletter that we upsell that you can't get through a paywall or what have you. But a lot of the things we talk about in the newsletter or in the show will be in the newsletter, and that's where you can get the original links to these things. I work really hard to make sure that you have the court filings themselves, not CNN's reporting about the court filings, things like that. Sometimes I forget a link. You can always ask me on X, but for the most part, this is the place to go for anything you want to study that we cover here on Redacted. So it's just redacted.inc. It's totally free. So, if the description of our videos are not the most reliable places for those sources, the newsletter has it. Or again, just reach out to us on X. So, okay. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great Monday night, everybody.